The doctor's in, and you're not going to like to hear this, but he's in you. Anyway, here it is. That was the headline. There's a dozen reasons for the illness of waking up in the morning in a trance. But the nice counterweight to the problem is that there is only one cure. So at least you're not even further frustrated and annoyed by having to run all around here and there wondering what you can do. One man, in fact, announced that the name of this life is, there is only one thing to do. And of course, if this makes things too simple and boring for you, you can always just keep singing and dancing, which afford an endless variety, if you want to call it that, to life. Myth tells of a long ago world in which, after good defeated evil, as a token of goodwill and to give evil something to do to keep it out of future trouble, good gave it the keys and lease to a dime-a-dance joint, catering primarily to the local riffraff. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. You live in that neighborhood, don't you? Yeah, but one of the many benefits of waltzing away your days is that low-level haze. In that low-level haze is that it's not necessary to pay others to provide the music. You're your own dazzling display, if you want to call it that. Concerning the consciousness related to conscription, or the like thereof, after being drafted, one man found himself at an isolated outpost in charge of guarding, well, he couldn't tell what. As far as he could see, there was nothing there to protect. But this is mortal existence we're discussing here, folks. So all that's irrelevant. And he went on a garden all the same. The few live in a different world than the many. They live in the same world, but only the few know it, and this makes it different. Did you get that? While on a pondering spree, a man surveyed the human form and asked himself, why do we have eyes in our head and not, for instance, in our feet? Just on the outskirts of a small town was a large billboard that announced, nature, in her wisdom and drive for maximum cost efficiency, puts mills next to rivers and ski lifts near mountains, always letting need determine location. And our pondering man mentioned Supra one day, by pure accident, happened to drive past this sign, and upon instant digestion of its message, momentarily lost control of his car and almost ran off the road. Oh no, cried Captain Toad, not ran off the road. Anything but that. And a certain hare, who was a professor of philosophy at a well-known university and off on a research sabbatical, was passing by and hearing the frog's cry, stopped and accusingly said, hey, you trying to steal my material or what? And nature obligingly whispered the reply, or what, dear boy? Always, or what? One man narrowed down his total approach to what's contained in this idea. Take everything you own with you, everywhere you go. One man had a rocket up his ass. The man next to him, his mind. The first man was a soccer player. The other, a mathematician. The first man found life okay, as long as he didn't think about it too much. And the other man couldn't find life, okay or otherwise, without thinking about it a whole bunch. And the moral to all of this is missing. Missing in action, as some would say, and missing because of action, as others would have it. How will you have it, my friends? With or without almonds? And if you're right, so I object to you at the very last moment, introducing into the conversation the idea of nuts. I resent it, and I'm sure so do many others. Sincerely yours, Manny and Estelle Others, New Brunswick, Connecticut. Oh, and that reminds me of some guy in Thailand, or maybe Bogota, has come up with his theory, this theory, that he couldn't be so periodically annoyed with his mind if he did not so consistently take the darn thing seriously. He says just thinking about it enough to be able to express the theory gives him the Bermuda Willy Jillies. Something awful. And now for the farm report. Well, sure, everybody hates opera, but the only people who really hate it are those who listen to it. And another viewer writes, oh, now I get it. Or maybe I don't. I either heard what you just said backwards or else you said it backwards. Guess it makes a little difference. Sorry I brought it up. Apologetically yours, etc. Machines are machines, and non-machines are non-machines. Now, the question is, how do you tell them apart? Wait, that's not quite right. Okay, here it is. Machines are machines, and non-machines are non-machines. And the question is, how can you tell them apart if you are one? Now, that's much better, huh? You don't think so? One day a mighty voice appeared to a man and declared, I am life, and I am at your disposal. My only purpose is to serve you. And the man, being no rube right off the farm, caught on quick and said, you're not the real life. And as always, we're right back to the question of, how do you tell them apart? What? Everything, you apple-cheeked ninnykins. One man developed his own personal method, which is to sit and try to stay continually balanced on the point of a needle. This, of course, works optimally when undertaken non-physically. One man always knew what he was talking about while he was talking, but when he looked away, he no longer did. This man is you. This man is your mind. One man was clever as a goose, but gooses get cooked. He never did. Balanced on the point of a needle. A boy asked his father, what is the difference in being here and thinking that you're here? Being here, he replied. An adult playtime tip. If you go outside, you'll be sorry. The matter of uncertainty and tripping delight fantastic traumas. When just dancing, the feet have no questions. When singing and dancing, the feet oftentimes hardly have feet. The difference between the many and the few is not whether they stumble or not, but whether or not they think there was some specific reason for it. Other than them being momentarily at least part of the many and doing the kinds of things the many always do. A genie on another world once offered a wretched creature his choice of either being normal or being something not quite known, which was somewhere between and beyond being either wretched or normal, figuring that the poor specimen would pick being normal as part of the predictable process of a creature gradually working its way up and improving itself. But the genie misread where the being stood, who considered normalcy just a worse form of wretchedness. Regarding residency, the fact, you're usually not at home. The question, does it matter if you care or not? People who don't know how to converse with themselves, talk to God, the dead, unseen forces, books, and other people, in the futile attempt to learn what's going on. I must apologize to any normal people who may have heard what I just said, since the word futile is inoperative in their lives. Pardon this verbal inconvenience, but I was attempting to convey something unspeakable anyway, and the inclusion of this concept made it a bit less impossible. Concerning extraordinary states of consciousness and their lack thereof. Enlightenment implies that there is something in the dark. And all you have to do is look around and you realize this is not so. It is in fact not possible for anything you perceive to be in the dark, if so, only temporarily. For anything you perceive to be in the dark is so only temporarily. Day invariably following night, spring, winter, etc. And everyone fully knows this from experience, yet mentally pretends otherwise. Give something more interesting to write home about, I guess. A man so pondered, is my mind a centrifuge, or is it in a centrifuge? To a knowing man, the exact locations on maps are unimportant, while the names given to them might not be, at least for a moment. The mental 2, or even 3, step. You can dance with the past, you can dance with the future. You can even dance with your own reflection, which takes care of all possibilities. And a slick gigolo lounging at the bar said, is that last line to be taken as positive and encouraging, or otherwise? But what would a truly slick man be other than wise and able to see between his own feet? Okay, count it off, boys. A 1 and a 2 and a fire! One man divided up his week into alternate days, whereby on one day he'd believe that anything was possible, while on the next he'd believe that nothing was possible, and so on. He says it worked so well, he eventually couldn't tell which one, if either, of them was true. Plus, no matter, it had no effect on what he could do or not do. One man had a plan. He'd never say a word that started with B until he had said one that started with A. And so with every other letter in the alphabet, always saying first a word beginning with the letter right before it. Must I go into further detail telling you what a happy man he proved to be? And if you feel inclined to mention that you don't get the point and want to ask me what it is, don't bother. Your act of asking is proof itself that you'll never understand. Look, up in the sky. It's a sky. One man would put his mind to bed. Oh, at least several times a minute. While on the journey to Istanbul, he kept dreaming of London, Rome, and Cairo, and never got to Istanbul. You cannot travel in a group. You must go as a self-collected singularity, a unity, a true individual, taking with you at all times everything that you own. One man had a rash upon which fleas feasted. And to maintain this condition, all he had to do was periodically comment on it. This man, one day, took a fresh look at the situation of the rash and the fleas and renamed it his emotions. On a faraway star was once a most evil, and may I say, gauche, spirit who tormented the inhabitants, not by actually tormenting them, but by giving them each a small initial notion of what torment might be, and from then on simply urged them from behind the scenes to think about it. No matter the galaxy, no matter the solar system, no matter the world, no matter the creatures, just thinking about it will always get the job done. Is this why, piercingly pondered one mortal, that I sometimes have a deep suspicion that hippos and several other species are secretly laughing at us? Rashes and fleas can bring physical passions to their knees. A tip regarding extreme living arrangements: make all of your family stay with you. When he heard it said that the world is big enough for everybody, one man asked himself, out there or in here? In retrospect, one man was forced to rename his life Brunicelli and the 4,000-pound negotiation. Don't you wish you'd thought of it first? One man's take on the matter of ownership is that my body owns me, and I own only my mind. And even that's an illusion. One man thought, if there's anything I hate more than my caring about conditions, it's my commenting about my caring. And the man's nephew mused, preferences are acceptable as long as they don't exist. And partner, they sure don't exist around these here parts unless you gab on about them. And the uncle pondered the sudden presence of the dialect appearing toward the end of the lad's comments. But hey, as we often like to say, hey, you talks your talk and you takes your chances. Hey, over and off the air for the day. You're supposed to have the national amnesia queued up to play right here. It's a little disc jockey radio humor. A boy asked his father, what is the difference between being totally focused and being in a trance? Being totally focused, he replied. A boy asked his father, well, what is the difference in everything? Nothing, he replied. Enry, the destination and the cost. Everyone wants to go there, but few seem willing to pay a price. Okay. Few seem able to pay a price once they realize what it is. Happy? A boy asked his father, is thinking about and talking about the realization anything at all like the realization? And don't answer me by asking if looking at pictures of food is anything like actually eating food. Okay, his old man replied, is chewing on pictures of food anything at all like eating real food? All right, exclaimed the lad, now we're getting somewhere. One man once thought, if I could consume what's already in my mind and start all over with an empty plate, then perhaps I'd get somewhere. And the voice of his great-grandfather spoke to him and said, ah, but you can. How? Cried the man. Set yourself free from the idea that you have a plate and that there is, in fact, food upon it. It is a matter of emptying yourself, my boy, of emptying yourself. The whole idea of awakening from some state of sleep is a bit pretentious, in that no condition of slumber is ever permanent. As sure as 6 o'clock follows 5, so does a man's awakening succeed his sleeping. I believe what's at the heart of this is a few people's dissatisfaction with our everyday state of walking around awareness, which obviously and demonstratively is quite sufficient for all of man's normal needs. But geez, some people are never satisfied. Just take a gander at their cemeteries and all those plastic flowers there, awaiting to bloom when the earth opens up, zombies come out, and the dancing can finally begin. Or, from their view, begin again. Yeah, like it never started in the first place. And if you're right, is what you just said still covered by your past assurances that no matter what you seem to be talking about, it's still and always about the mind? My silly viewer, what a question. It's hard to see clearly while singing and dancing. And one man had this idea. If I could do just one single, solitarily focused thing, totally right, I'd be okay. My silly man, what an idea. I have what I think will be some fairly pleasant news, and withal, it could prove to be otherwise. Known amongst you children as good news, bad news time. Once a man has had what has generally been referred to as some sort of awakening or enlightenment, but it's a realization wherein he realizes what has been going on in him, in his mind, and thus he realizes what has been going on, he thought, in life, but now he realizes it. After a sufficient number or quality of such realization, those few people who ever undergo it then are recipients, participants in the pleasant news from one view. And that is, the rest of the world, no matter the education and sophistication of the people, the rest of the world, by their own admission, if asked point blank, with no prejudice, will admit that they do not know what really specifically to do to bring themselves total peace and satisfaction in life. Not that ordinary people, not that 99% of humanity every morning considers that to be the challenge of life, but as we've noted, if you ask ordinary sane people, are they satisfied? One of the benchmarks of sanity and normalcy is that you are never satisfied. You're not supposed to be. But if you ask them as point blank again, if thinking about that specifically rules their lives, they would say no. But then you look at what they do. Once you are past the level of daily survival, which takes almost, it is negligible effort on a civilized man's part nowadays, then after that, everything he is doing is an attempt to produce some satisfaction and peace in his life, whether it be going out and playing golf after work, running, watching television, going to a lecture, going to the symphony, going to a movie. That after you have fed the body, had sufficient rest, looked after your needs to survive. After that, any sane everybody's efforts after that is an attempt to bring some peace and satisfaction to life. And if you ask such people, if you put it to them in that manner, they go, yeah, that's a fair description of what life is about. Particularly if you point out to them that you do not have anything clerical, religious in mind, not excluding it, but you don't mean anything religious or even philosophical, but that a man's, after he has fed himself, the whole point of life to people, even if it be tacit, is to enjoy themselves. That'd probably be the way people would most likely want to put it in English. But then if you say, well, it's not just enjoy, it's that you want some satisfaction, that you want some sort of peace. It's like that internally, again, if you tell them you don't have anything particular in mind specifically, but you're saying it's sort of like you want to, whatever it is in us that makes us different, as you sort of want to raise it up to some level that you can tell there's something sort of lacking. People go, yeah, you're right. Peace and satisfaction. That would satisfy probably everybody. So then if you get them to admit that, if you get them to see that and admit it, then if you say, well, would you say that most people, and if you'd like to speak for yourself, would you say that most people and you have any specific idea how to go about it? They go, no. Now many people on the surface would probably want to answer and say, well, yeah, if they were religious, especially because that's religion's external, superficial purpose, proclaimed purpose, is to bring about such peace and satisfaction in a man's life. And so with many people, they would have the inclination to give you a first response. And if you say, well, do you know how to go about it? And if they were a self-proclaimed Catholic, let's say, Christian, Jew, they'd say, yeah, it's to lead a more Christian life. If I could actually lead a Christian life, that's what I should be doing. That's what I should be doing. So they'd very likely say that. But then if you ask them this, and they could have some other answer, they could have some secular answer that they could say, well, I should live a more charitable, humane life. So in other words, many people would attempt to give you an answer. If you said, do you know specifically how you could produce, in your opinion, have you thought about, do you believe that you know how to bring about increased, maybe conclusive peace and satisfaction in your life? And many people would want to give you an immediate response like, yeah, I should be a better person. Yeah, I should live a more Christian, a more upright life of a Muslim, whatever it is. And if you say, okay. But then if you ask them, if you say, well, what is stopping you? If you know that. Of course, again, always in my kind of fictitious dialogues between me and the 99% of ordinary humanity, metaphorically, you've got to assume that I could speak to them in a non-judgmental way and that they would answer in a manner, something approaching the clinical. That they could give some reflection of what's really going on as opposed to their self-centered, episodic feeling of what life's about. So if I said, well, all right, you say that you believe that you know what you should be doing. Let's take religion. They say, well, if I said, do you believe you know what it would take for you to live a more peaceful and satisfied life? And they go, yeah, if I lived a Christian life. Everybody would be. And you go, okay. And you go, so you know that. And you've already answered the first question when I asked you, are you totally satisfied and at peace internally? And you said, no, like everybody else did on this planet. Almost everybody I've talked to. And you go, yeah, you're right, I'm not. And I say, but now the second question, I said, would you have a belief that you know how, that you could produce greater peace and satisfaction in your life? And your answer was, yeah, if I lived a more Christian life. If I lived a Christian life. And he said, yeah. And I said, all right, that was the second answer. But now I got a third one for you. If you know that, and you're not satisfied, then that means you're not living the life, so why aren't you? Now this is where it defies his second answer, whether it was Christianity or to live a better Irish life or Indian life, whatever. Because then he would say this. He would say, well, it's not so much a matter that I don't know what to do, because, for instance, to use Christianity, I've got the Ten Commandments, or I've got the Golden Rule. So that would do it. I'm still talking for the 99% of humanity, they would say, so it's not so much that I don't know what to do, it's I don't know how to do what it is I know I should be doing. And it would be true. A man could just say, somebody else's answer when I ask them, the first one, are you satisfied and totally at peace? And they go, no. And I go, well, do you have any idea what you could do? And if he said, yes, I should live a more charitable life. I should be more compassionate to my fellow man. And so that person, I could say, well, you say you know what to do. Why are you not more compassionate? And he would go, well, you got me, because now we sort of, I guess I'm not telling you the truth when I say I know what to do. I know what to do. As far as I'm concerned, if I was a compassionate man, if my life was built around charity and feelings of goodwill and concern for my fellow man, I have no doubt I would be living at peace and my life would be one of total satisfaction. But the way you put it now, why don't I do it? I guess I'm like most people. I can't, I don't, I try, I think about it, but it's like, I don't know, being human, I don't know exactly how to implement what I know I should do. Yeah, that's it. Do you all hear? That belies the second answer, that is, that people know what to do. It would take 3 steps for most people. And to them, of course, they wouldn't see it, but I want you to see that that's the way your own mind works. It at first says it knows what to do, but then its answer is, when you say, well, why don't you do it? It says, well, I don't know how. In other words, no one knows how to be a Christian or a Jew or anything else. But go back to that kind of example. If I went past that third question, when the person that told me that it's their absolute belief, their conviction that could they live, or if they lived a better Christian life or a Christian life or a full Christian life, that they would be satisfied and at peace. And then I said, the second one, well, why don't you do it? And then they said, well, I don't know how. If I ask another question to anybody past that point, if I then say, well, wait a minute, how can you know what to do and not be able to do it? Something seems funny here. You say that God has said, well, if you live by the golden rule, let's do that. If you live by the golden rule, you'll be a Christian. I will approve of you from top to bottom. Your life will meet with my unconditional approval. Let's say that's what Christianity is, all religion. And the guy says, yeah. And I go, well, how can you say that you don't know how to do it? I mean, it's a short sentence. Treat your fellow man as yourself, or love your fellow man as yourself. What part of that sentence don't you understand? What doesn't make sense? Of course, by then he was probably getting a bit defensive. It's almost impossible not to. And then the person, speaking for the 99% of humanity, would want to begin to do a serious piece of surgery on language, which they'd have to. And then they'd have to say, well, when you asked me, did I know what to do? And I said I did, to be a Christian or live by the golden rule. And then you asked me why I didn't do it. If I knew what it was, why not go ahead and do it so I would live a life of greater satisfaction and be at peace with myself? I felt all that, and then you said, well, that didn't make any sense, that it seems so short and direct and to the point and obvious. And then you say, well, why don't you do it? Now, this is hold true for the man who answered on a religious basis and the one who answered on a secular basis. It worked with anybody. If I pushed them that far, and I'm still trying to make you see the operations of the mind, not of other people, for you to consider it, he would then have to say, well, I hear all your questions, and you're right. There is no real. My third answer was not much of an answer because it doesn't really explain anything, does it? And then he'd have to go, well, you know what I guess it is? And the religious, this is where faith would pop up. They'd have to say, well, I guess that's what faith's about. I guess in all religions, somewhere, have something to explain this. They can always extract it from their holy literature somewhere. That the gods have said that all you can do is aspire to do good, to be fulfilled, to live according to their dictates, and that no one is the equal to the gods. It just can't be. You can't have it that way. And so therefore, when the gods say, here's the way you should act, they know beforehand you can't do it. or else they'd be cutting their own throat. They'd be promoting you up to their level. Then they'd have to do something. They'd have to do better. They'd have to get another job. So it does not happen. So then the person would have to say, their mind would have to say something such as, well, it must be that there is something inherent in human nature, either because of offending the gods in the case of the religious person, or just simply on the basis of the makeup, physically, characteristically, emotionally, the disposition, but just the physical makeup of Homo sapiens, of men, is just right now at the point that we cannot do all that we know we should do. Therefore, it's an inherent flaw. It's a weakness either brought on by the gods, if you take that extreme, or to the other end, that it is just natural, that it is that our knowledge of what we should be doing always outstrips our ability to execute the knowledge. And that would appear to settle the matter with ordinary people. In fact, it would. They went that far that you can't take it any further. But now consider, those who have had a realization sufficiently, and I say sufficient to the point that it's had caused a permanent shift in their mental view of life, they are, from one view, now privy to the encouraging news, the encouraging, not news, encouraging reality, that they, amongst just a small 1% at the most of humanity, at the most, of people, likewise, unsatisfied, not totally at peace, not at peace with themselves, but they not only know what to do, they know how to do it. And of course, that is immediately, all you got to do is your mood shift just instantaneous a bit, and that's also, the step on my dick news. See, before any realization, you can dream all the great dreams about what used to be thought of as great secret, mystical, metaphysical journeys, adventures into higher states of consciousness, spiritual adventures into greater spiritual depth, a closeness, a drawing nigh to the gods themselves, to the engines that fire and power the universe. God, it's amazing. Makes your head swim to think about it, don't it? I love it. I love it. Well, everybody loves fairy tales and cartoons, but you can even have a affection for it of greater depth than that. The affection of the continuing picturization of that is so far away. Not only is it impossible, but it's so far away you never get a glimpse of the fact that it doesn't exist. That's the reason nobody knows what God looks like, in case you never thought about it. They keep picturing him so far away. What the hell? How are you ever going to make out who it is? You just kind of... See, that's all it takes. Just keep imagining, boy, he lives a long way off. But you say, well, but he does exist. Oh yeah. Know it for a fact. Feel it. I know it. You go, well, so if you know it, you must have, some notion. What does God look like? They go, I told you he lived a long way off. I mean, he's way outside of us. I mean, he doesn't live in this neighborhood. Oh, okay, I got that, but just a hint. I mean, if you're that convinced that he's out there somewhere, then you got some impression. What he looked like. You go, well, I'm telling you must be new around here, because I'm telling you, he lives a mighty long way off. I mean, it's further than just down the road a piece. He's a long way off. See, that protects you just in case he's not there. If you keep picturing him so far away, then you think, well, I can't see him anyway. That's the bad news for people that see what life is, because there is nothing, after you've had sufficient realization of what life is, there is nowhere that's any longer outside your sight. There is nowhere to go, well, I'd do better if I knew what to do. You know exactly what to do. as has been noted, as nebulous, verging on, or cum impossible, as it seems, even from without and from within operations, activities such as this, for a person to have any sensation when it's operating in real time. And in other words, it has no systemic form to it. Then there seems to be no way, even from within or without, to get some clear impression, well, am I getting anywhere? There are no stages, there are no graduations, there are no positions to assume, no new title. It's without form. It's without any sequential, systematic organization. And so there's almost nothing you can say about it regarding, are you making any progress in that? But there's one damn sure way to tell. You can always tell. It's the only way, and it's the one way, and once you know that, there is no other way. You don't ever want to think about it anymore, except when you're making effort. And that is when you know not only what to do, but you can do it right this second. And make yourself more agreeable to you. Not to me, not to Buddha, not to Jesus, not to God. That you know what and how to do that right this second that will make you more acceptable, more agreeable to you. Once you know that, you can't ever talk about progress after that. Whereas other people talk about progress and struggle and sometimes the stagnation due to extraordinary changes in conditions. Whereas everybody else is talking about such as that, you have one word for all of it: stupidity. Or if you're feeling bad and think you deserve a break, weakness. Except once you know it, you can say weakness to yourself. And yourself goes, yeah, stupidity. You go, no, weakness. I hadn't been feeling good. Stupidity. Give me a break. Okay. Stupidity. I got a hangover. I got a headache. No sense talking to me like that. And it writes it down. Stupidity. What else are you going to call it? The word doesn't fit. I know it's, you can usually get a laugh of bring up something like this, even to an ordinary group of people, and talk about how stupid people are, and especially if you can twist it around to where it apparently is us laughing at ourselves, or just the non-specific nature of humans. People, oh yeah, that's kind of funny. We are dumb and stupid. There's no word. Stupid doesn't fit. Dumb doesn't fit. Ignorant doesn't fit. There is no word. Ordinary people, if they were following any of this, the 99% of minds would argue with that and say, well, I know exactly what you're talking about. In other words, a Christian, if I can twist this around right quick, a religious person, if they were following this far, and they go, wait a minute, I do know what you're talking about. So in a sense, stupidity does fit, because you're right. When I said that I knew what to do to make my life more satisfying and to bring myself more at peace with myself, and I said, I knew what to do, yeah. And I said that, and you asked me why I didn't do it, and I went, well, I don't know. I guess God had cursed us. We lost our original innocence, and now we can't really do exactly what we should and all that. You remember that's the answer I gave you, and we have to depend on faith, and God will straighten it out and show us what was lacking after we died. And I went, yeah, I remember you said that. And then the religious person might say, well, listen, I just listened to the rest of that. You thought I'd left the room, but wait a minute. When you start talking about stupidity, making those little pseudo jokes, and then you said that the word didn't apply, I walked back in because it does apply. I know it doesn't have much of a spiritual sounding tone to it, but that's exactly it, because I do know, for instance, to treat my neighbors myself, and I say, well, I'm weak, and etc., and I forget to do it, but it's stupidity. It fits. It fits more to them than it does someone that realizes life. They would be loath to ever get around to seeing it as stupidity for reasons obvious. Not having to do anything with vanity, but that the mind itself is involved with a kind of self-protection, the same as the body is. But they would have they would be the only ones with any right to even metaphorically adopt the idea that, yeah, I am stupid. that us people, us humans, all the way from us religious people to us simply intelligent, right-thinking humans, we know what to do. And we can't say that we can't do it. It seems like we can't, but to say absolutely we can't let go at that, that is stupidity. You're right. It's ignorance. It's stupidity on my part to say that. Maybe I can't do it personally. Maybe I will always be defeated in trying to be, by God, a better human. But I can try. And to say that I can't do it and let it go at that, you're right, that's stupidity. You know, I'm the one that said it, but they're the only ones that could actually adopt it. A man who's had the realization sufficient to know what life's about, stupidity doesn't cover it. There is no word to cover it. Stupidity it's not even close. Or if it was close, it is far too weak. It's just not close. There is no word. And a man with sufficient realization is even more. Some of you sitting there right now should to yourself even be more insulted to think about it. So you're right. Stupidity is not even close. And to realize that you do exemplify what I'm speaking of throughout the day. And to turn and call yourself stupid, if you let it go at that, that's like a man who committed murder. A man who murdered his family, and his sentence, they make him eat pie without ice cream. Oh, all right, I can do better than that. They send him to jail over the weekend. For a man who realizes what is going on, and as I said, in that case, he knows at any given moment what to do. And he knows how to do it. That's the name of the problem. He knows what to do to make himself more agreeable to himself, more acceptable. And then to realize that you do not do it. If you could say, well, I'm stupid. Boy, am I stupid. God, am I stupid. I mean, I'm really stupid. Okay. If you accept that as being even in the same universe as acceptable notation and reaction to the way you're living, then you are stupid. Well, I realize we'd turn back on ourselves. There's nothing else to call you. You are stupid, but to a new level. A kind of quiet, peaceful, non-abrasive stupidity. It's beyond any modifiers or dramatics. It's just stupid. The point was that you should, in a sense, these words don't fit either, but you should even feel more ashamed, disgusted, just generally feel bad about it. Not bad and dissatisfied like other people, but to a new level, an extremely new, metaphysical, higher level of dissatisfaction, turmoil, confusion. Not confusion, chaos, because there's no confusion. It's like you are back in a room when you're back living it, more or less in your own mind again, that you're singing and dancing your way through life, if you want to call it that, while periodically coming to your senses there in the middle of the dance floor. And it's like you're there in the world's largest Roseland. There's a dance floor, and it's chaos, not confusion, because I'm talking about a man who's already been outside, flown above the dance floor, and seen it all. So it's not really confusion, but he's in the middle again of chaos compared to where he has been. So he's in the midst of chaos, and there's no one to say a word to. There's nothing to be said. What I'm trying to keep from saying, which I'm about to say anyway, there's no one to blame, including him. But there's no one to look around and go, you people. The obvious one to ordinary minds is that everybody around me, the circumstances, that is, other humans, if they would just simply do better. If they would do better, I could do better. But once you have flown above that great, infinite, or at least international, Roseland, is that Tito playing? No, it doesn't matter who's playing. You're playing. If you're there, you're playing. That was one of the news items, that's one of the benefits. Grossly overlooked, entirely overlooked until tonight for me to bring it out in public. That is one of the benefits of singing and dancing yourself, is that it saves you from paying someone else to provide the music. Assuming that you understand the music is everything. It's books, it's sermons, it's conversation, it's movies, it's everything that happens externally to you on which the mind believes it might feed. It saves you that amount of money. All you got to do is talk to yourself. Talk to yourself sufficiently. You don't have to go to movies. Listen to yourself sing to an adequate degree, and you don't have to buy CDs. You don't have to buy mystical books. You don't have to talk to anybody for advice. Who needs advice? No better, it's no worse, and it's homegrown. You can stay home, you can stay in your underwear. No tickets, no standing in line, no $5 popcorn. But once you've flown above it, you cannot turn around and say, why don't these people straighten up? You're in the midst of chaos, but you know exactly where you are. You know why you're there. You know that it's proper to be there. And you know that there's nowhere to look to say, could somebody help me out? Could somebody show me the way out of here? Pardon me, could you make way and let me get through? Or would you get off my foot? Or, of course, to the extreme, the childish extreme, is you hold your little head up and holler, help God, somebody come and get me. It's nice to know what to do, is it not? Except under one condition. I don't want to go into it. It's just too heartbreaking. Life's upsetting enough now as it is. I don't want to talk about it.